So we're going to be looking at some steps that are leading to meditation, and just some interesting illustrations here of, we have a goddess on the left in a meditation posture, Padmasana, the legs crossed and the feet turned upwards. Happy Navratri if you're celebrating. I believe it's Mahalakshmi, so Shubh Mahalakshmi. This is illustrations. They're from a book that we're going to be talking about a little bit, from a book by Sally Kempton called Awakening Shakti, and the illustrator teaches devotional art in Mumbai, and his name is Ekabumi Elik. So some beautiful images, as well as we have the center of Shiva sitting in traditional meditation, making a mudra. And we have an image of Sita, again from Mr. Ekabumi Elik, in the traditional posture with eyes closed. Just before we get started though, I said I showed a book, and I'm in school, I'm loving books. So I have to just take this opportunity to show you a few more jumping off points for reading if this interests you. Like I said, this was Awakening Shakti by Sally Kempton. If you're interested in meditation, I have a Happy for No Good Reason. Excellent Meditator's Guide. If you're interested in yogic texts, I have some of my school books here. The Bhagavad Gita, which is probably the most well-known spiritual literature of India. Or from my own yoga teacher training, also read around the world. Yoga, this is the Yoga Sutra attributed to Patanjali, the Barbara Stoller Miller translation, and it's Yoga Discipline of Freedom. So it's the basics on yogic philosophy, and this is in a really accessible read and translation if you're into it. Moving beyond your mat, there's a local author, Barry Reisman, Evolving Your Yoga, 10 Principles for Enlightened Practice. And I've trained at some point. I've practiced with Barry, and I know she has studied at some point with Mr. Iyengar from India. So very informed, very beautiful. Mr. Iyengar himself, the classic Light on Yoga, illustrated poses, lots of explanation. I really got interested in the Sanskrit names for the poses, so you can look that one up. If you're looking for more on the anatomical side, I've studied with Dr. Ray Long, who's an orthopedic surgeon, who's written some scientific key volumes, the key muscles of Hatha Yoga. So it's yoga explained anatomically, stretching explained beautifully for yoga teachers and students. Awaken Breath, a book from another one, and really goes into the anatomy, reason, and philosophy behind pranayama and the breathing practices that we do. You may have noticed that there's steps in practice towards meditation or dhyana. We don't just sit down, close our eyes, and go for it. I mean, if you can do that, some people perhaps have that facility, be able to slow their mind and just really internalize themselves and drop into it. But usually, just like learning to play a musical instrument, you need to practice. So the steps towards that is part of the eight-limbed yoga of Patanjali, is how I was taught. So the physical is the asana, the postures that we see people doing in the studios on the mat, engaging the body, releasing muscle tension, then going to pranayama. We're going to involve the deeper, more interiorized muscles of breathing and get a more interior focus as we move in. Moving farther in towards the center of ourself, of our humanity, is Pratyahara. And this is a word meaning withdrawing the senses. So we think of a turtle drawing the limbs and the head back into the shell. In a mundane way, it's getting rid of distractions, putting down the screen, the phone, the bag of chips, making quiet time, quiet space for yourself, creating sacred space for quiet contemplation, so that you can really interiorize and have an experience within yourself that's not just based on consumption and appearances. It's the whole first steps of the inner journey. Then the next step would be dharana, which is concentration techniques or visualizations. A classic one is staring at a candle or the sound of a ringing bell. Something that I'm going to show a few of those, and then we're going to practice. Leading all of this, leading and setting the stage for formal meditation, dhyana. So having a formal meditation means like a practice, if you're playing your piano, you sit at your piano, you have a good posture, you do your exercises and your things for your hands. You set the stage for your participation and for to really engage as a whole person. Your mind has to focus, your body has to be held in a certain position, and your heart has to be willing to do it, to be able to engage. So it's a combination of willing, knowing, and acting. So a very integrative process. So just like a musician, we're going to be meditating. So something that supports meditation is picking, if you have a personal practice, is picking a regular place and time so that you get used to it. Your body gets into a certain rhythm every night before bed or every morning before you have breakfast, or as long as it makes sense to you for how many times, or maybe you go regularly to a meditation class and you start on a schedule. So that's one way it conditions the body and the mind to be receptive and to start and to dig in. If you're formally practicing, you perhaps would have your own asana, being a cushion where you always sit. And again, it cues and conditions and sets the stage for you to meditate. Another meditation support is having a shawl or a special blanket that you sit on, something that's like a touchstone for you, you'll see and you engage with it, and then guess what? It's meditation time. So it's really, you can make it personal as you wish. Okay, so some selection of dharnas. So dharnas are visualizations or practices using the human imagination or using things in the in everyday life. So a dharana, we've got some selections here, and the first one would be listening with undivided attention to the prolonged sound of string or other musical instruments. Then one will be at the end absorbed in the marvelous form of the ether of consciousness and thus attain to the nature of Bhairava, which is another name for Shiva, consciousness. This is something accessible in real life. We're going to use the bell. I use the bell routinely to start and end the practice, but we'll do more ringing, and we'll see where that goes. See if you have an experience, if you can break it down just like we would when we Om, that there's 4 parts to the Om, which is, it sounds just like one thing, like a bell would be ding and an Om would be Om, but really Om is an ah, oo, silence. It's a 3-part cycle with silence at the end, and the bell as well. So by listening intently and getting absorbed, we're getting a more and more subtle appreciation for the sound, either that we're making or that we're here through listening. So we're using the senses, and then getting it more and more interiorized. Dharnas 71, on the occasion of experiencing great delight, such as when one sees a friend or relative after a long period of separation, one should meditate on that delight itself and become absorbed in it, and then the awareness will become identified with it. So this is beautiful. Especially, I found this one very pertinent, because the idea that we all have, delight, joy within, that can be sparked daily by interactions with friends, with relatives, with pets. And we are experiencing periods of separation in terms, sometimes not emotionally, that we can communicate over the phone right now or over Zoom, or but the idea of the moment of recognition where you see somebody familiar in the crowd, and then you know what that feels like, and then to be absorbed in that moment of joy, and that is a key to opening the experience of meditation in a little more of an emotional way, a little more of an effective way. The next one, when one experiences delight from the pleasure of eating or drinking something, one should meditate on that perfect condition of joy. From that, there will arise the supreme delight. So this is the concept of mindful eating, is a big word right now. The idea that, a lot of I remember the cookbooks back in the day, where like the joy of cooking, well, the joy of eating or tasting something, this can be a living meditation that can be done. You don't really need to be in the mountains, or it can be somewhere exotic, or it can be in your own quiet time, in your own space, and have a very, like an informal meditation of eating or drinking, and really savoring, let's say, taking one bite and letting it stay in your mouth, whether it's a bite of chocolate or a piece of fruit, and really going slowly and having the sensation of, some of the teachings are you have like one raisin and you make it last for like 5 minutes. You can't swallow it. And really have a meditation on the physical experience and savoring it, and slowing down and being able to have the experience of that food rather than mindless eating, which is really something we all fall into in our culture, in modern culture. The opposite of fast food is slow food, and then really slow food is mindful eating, and then beyond that, meditative eating, so that it can be a gateway to the inner self and meditation. The everyday mundane experience of sleeping, when sleep has not yet fully overtaken, but when external objects have faded away, at that moment, when one becomes aware of this state, then the Supreme Goddess will reveal herself. So there's that state. Some of famous teachers have said, my teacher's teacher has said, that you can think of meditation as sleeping sitting up, which is really valid, because our brains go through different wavelengths. Apparently, that's not my strength. I don't really know, but that there's these liminal phases between being fully alert and being asleep, and then REM sleep and all that. So to really be attentive between sleeping and waking. You can be in a meditative state and not even realize it. So the idea of sleeping sitting up, it sounds a little bit cliche, but it really does pertain to the like the theta brainwave state, in my understanding. Having fixed the eyes without blinking on some external object and then directing his or her gaze within, then making the mind free of all thoughts, the yogin or yogini achieves the state of Shiva without delay. So this can also be achieved by slowly closing the eyes, or fixating on an image, or even a blank wall that can lead the mind to quietude and peace within. And so all of these dharnas, which seem to me quite modern and practical, are actually from about a text from about 8th or 9th century India, the Vijnana Bhairava. And this is the Jayadeva Singh translation. And this was only translated to the English language, I believe, in the 1970s. So just the fact that this has made it here to 2020 to help us access meditation in this context, to me seems nothing short of a miracle, that there's this wisdom out there that that's been used for centuries to help people in all kinds of situations, droughts and floods and tigers and illnesses. Human beings have to overcome so much, and so in that way, like, nothing is new. And thankfully for spiritual traditions with insights that can help us and guide us and give us some solace and some quietude and some peace right now. So the meditative state itself is called samadhi. Literally means putting back together the senses and the breath. So we're not mindlessly in our senses and we're not forgetful of the breath. And in previous sessions, I've mentioned that the breath and the mind dance together. So if you have a very active, busy, anxious, worrying mind, you probably have a more high, shallow breathing pattern. Stilling the mind stills the breath, and then conversely, slower, measured breathing stills and calms the thoughts. And so they dance hand in hand. And the way it was explained to me is the movie reel of the thoughts. Like, think back, okay, when we had movies on big reels. Okay, it's not digital, but there were the images and there's the little black space. And by going through, you probably already know this, but going through the movie, it looks like, when the movie's flowing, it looks like a film. But as it slows down, the projector would slow down, you start to see the gaps between the individual stills. So the idea that the movie reel of the thoughts slows down and gaps appear between the thoughts. So there's moments of peace between one thought and then the next one that usually, in our usual state of mind, builds on that. So with practice, the gaps get wider, allowing the peaceful, soulful connection to arise from within. And a beautiful word, Satchit Ananda, translates as truth or being, consciously joyful. Let's start moving a little bit. And where we go with meditate with the body, just do muscular tension. Maybe do a little bit of pranayama, and then lead to the meditation. Okay, so come to tension on your chair. Place your feet. If you're leaning back, like, sit up try to sit without support on the backrest. And just settle and arrive. Kind of bring your awareness back into your body, can feel your hands on your slacks. You can feel your breathing a little bit. Soften your gaze and just you're here with me, but you're also just in your own quiet, safe little space. Bring your hands to your heart. I'll Om 3 times. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Feel free to chant along, to say it in your head. Om, Om. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So let's just give a few shrugs. Lift the trap muscles up right towards the ears with a good inhale, and then exhale. Let the shoulders down. Let the air release. Just feel the difference between effort and letting go. Also, just place our hands on the kidneys in the back. So imagine here in the back of above your hips, and sitting tall. Imagine that you can breathe into the lower back area of your lungs. See if you can direct your breath to your placed hands by inflating the lungs and keeping just a nicely engaged abdomen, not rigid, but not completely loose. Just it's at a tension so that your abdomen doesn't protrude, that the air goes back and presses into your hands right above your kidneys. And just put it's like almost having a massage on the inner back part of your spine, just from directing your own breath in a new pattern. And release your hands. Bring them to your chest. Breathe into your heart. Breathe out. Lift the hands about three hand widths above your head. Not to stretch the shoulders, but just to be at your upper limit. And then breathe in. Pause at the heart. Breathe out. Just pause at the upper limit without overstretching. Just being comfortable and keeping that connection on the vertical. Breathing in. Pause. Breathe out. Pause. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe into the heart. Breathe out. Release. Release your hands. Release the shoulder tension. You can place your hands, fingers just behind your skull, just like you're cupping the back of your skull. And dip your shoulders, point your elbows forward and dip your shoulders into their sockets, just to feel a different movement. Extend them in front, pointing towards you, and then dipping them, drawing the big scapula in back of your heart, opening the heart space this way, extending, and then finding a neutral place without effort. You just find a neutral place and lift the heart, and this time dip the chin and press the base of the skull just into the interlaced fingers, gently extending creating a nice space between the cervical joints in the back of the neck. Just not forcefully. You don't want to be rigid. You don't want to flatten it out. Inhale, relax. Take a breath or two. Inhale, tall. Draw yourself up to full height. Imagine being pulled right up to the crown. And then dip the chin, bringing the ears over your shoulders. If there was a nice straight line from the side, your ears would be right over your shoulders. The neck extends in the back. Your fingers just hold and even can push up just a little bit. Create a little bit of lift. Inhale, tall one more time. Exhale, release. Release the arms, the shoulders. Let the neck just float, the head float on the neck without any pressure now. If you can come just to the front of your chair a little bit. If you're comfortable, please stay within your own range of motion and what's comfortable and doable for you. But if you're able to participate, bring a knee up, planting one foot and bringing one to the chest. Just compress the abdomen, hugging the knee in, still in good balance, with a nice tall back, and dip your chin, feel that extension in the neck, and then release. Other side, bring the knee up, hug it to the chest. Inhale, tall, tall spine. Exhale. Feel the knee pressing, the thigh pressing any air out of the abdomen on that side. And release. If you're comfortable at that level, by all means stay. If you want a little bit more, you're happy to engage with your foot and draw it up. In a modified happy baby, drawing the foot up to one side, pressing the foot into the fingers. And release. Center yourself again. Either continue to draw up the knee. If you want to engage the foot, draw it up. Root down with the sit bones. Press the ball of the foot into the hand while keeping a tall spine. And release. Back to the first one. You can draw the knee up and see if you can extend. Do it on the side, see if you can extend, or if you're comfortable to do a modified heron. But please note your own range of motion. It's not as Simon says, just see how you feel. Sometimes just getting out of our regular posture. See if we want to test the limits, that's up to you. But please be mindful of your own range. Other side. Tall spine, draw the knee up. See if you wish to extend. Keep it bent. And release. Remember before we were breathing into our kidneys? Well, now I have a little kidney challenge for you. If you wish to sit on the edge of the chair and bring both knees up, I'll let you experiment with that. You may have to rock back a little bit. So move the sit bones right to the edge of the chair and support yourself. And if you want to lift your knees off the floor and have a little balance in a modified boat, just easy does it. And feel your sit bones, feel your balance point. Sometimes, yep, just getting the knees off the ground, engaging the abdomen. And then you might notice it's hard to breathe because your abdominal wall is contracted. So this pose, relax again. This pose, by really contracting the abdomen, induces us to breathe into the lower lungs. It also could be you're breathing really high, but if you're really trying to make the connection and breathe into the lower lungs, it really engages the abdomen. So there's really nowhere for the air to go. It has to go back to the sweet spot of the kidneys. So with that in mind, you can do one leg, two legs, or two at the same time. Your abdomen muscles engaging. In a modified boat position. And see how unusual it is to breathe in this position, but yet you still must. Breathe in deep, out long. Breathe in deep, out long, and release. Then release any tension and go back to your very own breathing pattern. Not induced by any abdominal engagement. Okay. We had done the Pratyahara, which is the idea that we're going to withdraw from the senses. You can do a modified child, which is putting your abdomen on your knees. So I'm just going to pull out a little bit here. You can also do just a version of your hands covering your eyes. This is fine. Or compressing your abdomen on your legs and just coming down and literally turning your back to the world in child position, where your abdomen is covered, your spine is up. Usually it's done on the mat face down, but we're just inventing this for now. We're coping with this for now, just to do it, and let your head hang down and feel your abdomen supported on your thighs. And soften your gaze and feel a little more going in. Ready, come back up. Keeping your eyes soft, your gaze. Your eyes soft, you're alert, but not looking around, not looking for the phone, not looking for distractions. Tuning into the breath. If you have a shawl or a blanket, keep one handy. You can use this. Place a blanket or a pillow over your lap. Anything that you have in your environment that's your support system. A beautiful cushion, a folded blanket under the feet or under the sit bones, your favorite sweater, just to give that element of comfort and warmth and self-nurturing. So I'm going to sound the bell, and we're going to ask you if you can tease out the 3 audible stages leading to the 4th, which is the silence and the meditation. So I'm going to ring the bell a few times over the course of the next few minutes. and it's okay if your mind wanders off into other thoughts, but when you ring the bell, like, oh yeah, come back to the bell. And again, we have a contact point, the creation phase, a maintenance, which is a sustain, the ringing that rings out, and then a dissolution. You can hear it fade, and then the void afterwards. So you're listening kind of as that resonance disappears almost into infinity, and as our dharna for tonight. So. Take a gentle breath in. Exhale slowly. You can sigh to release the air, like or just in through the nose and out through the mouth. Slowly begin to rub your hands. Softly draw yourself back to the external world. You can place the heat of your practice, the heat generated, into your heart, into your throat. Make up your eyes, wherever you feel you may need it, to seal in the memory of a visit to the inner world. A place of respite, a place of an oasis in our busy life. To hopefully grasp the idea that peace is within and attainable and ever present. If we can just pause and find the thread back to the inner country. Place your hands on your heart. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bow to your own heart. Release. Give yourself a little massage. You can rub your temples, up the sides of your jaw, back of your neck, right up under the bones. Hug it out. One hand here can get a nice sweet spot. And switch to the side. A little self-massage, little self-attention goes a long way lately. Namaste. Thanks for coming. Have a great evening. It's 7 o'clock. If anybody's on the go. If not, feel free to just savor another moment of our little oasis that we've created tonight. Thank you for coming.